Okay, so for this video, we'll be discussing about data types and numbers. Again, my source here is W3 School. So again, the best way to learn from these videos is to open your open Python and then follow whatever examples are given in these slides. So built-in data types. In programming, data type is an important concept. Variables can store data of different types, and different types can do different things. So Python has the following data types built in by default in these categories. So you have text, or these are what we call string. That's why it says here str. Numeric types, so these are numbers, so it can be an integer. So integers are whole numbers, float, and then complex numbers. So especially mathematics, we use complex numbers. Sequence types, so these are list, tuple, or range. Mapping type, you have dict or dictionary. Set types, you have set and frozen set. Boolean types, we have bool or boolean. Binary types, you have bytes, byte array, memory view, and none type also as none type. So most of these will be discussed in our next chapters. Getting the data type. So you can get the data type of any object by using the type function. So type open close. So for example here, we have placed here x is equal to 5. Then we print the type of x. So it will say, it will place here that x is actually an integer. So let's place here Python x equals 5. Sorry, print type print open close type x. So it says here class integer because x is an integer. So setting the data type. So if we do this by default, these are the data types that will be given by Python. So let's say for example we have x equals hello world enclosed in double quote. So that will be a string. So if you have x equals 20, that will become an integer. X equals 20.5, that's float. X equals 1j, so that's a complex number. X equals, so enclosed is in square bracket, that is a list. X is equal to, so we use parentheses, then we have here several items, so that's a tuple. So x is equal to range 6, that's a range. X is equal to, so we use curly braces, and this is a dictionary or dict. So we have key and then the value, etc. So we'll be discussing more of this. X equals, so similar to a dictionary, but we don't have keys, so we have only items here. So that is a set. So x is equal to frozen set, so open and close, and then the same as set. And then x equals true, that's a boolean value. X equals b hello, that these are bytes. X equals byte array 5, so byte array. X equals memory view bytes 5, so memory view. And then x equals none, that's none type. Setting the specific data type. So let's say we want to set a specific data type, so we can actually use casting, or we can use this one. So let's say for example x is equal to str hello world, then it means that x here is a string. X is equal to int, and then 20. X is equal to float 20.5. so if we just use 20 and then we use float, then it will become a float value, not an integer, because of this one. So x is equal to complex 1j. So x is equal to list open close, and then we have here a list. So you notice we did not use a square bracket, but this list or these items will be converted into a list because of this one, this function. So tuple the same, so that will make this list into a tuple. So we have range, dictionary. So it will be turned into a dictionary. Then we have set. So we did not use curly braces, but we use parentheses. But still, because of this function, this will be stored as a set in Python. So a frozen set, same with the previous one, the boolean 5. So even though it's 5, it will be stored as boolean. So usually a non-zero value is actually true. So we have bytes 5, byte array 5, memory view bytes 5. So these are memory views. So we'll learn more of this as we go on our next lectures. So numbers. So Python numbers. So there are 3 numeric types in Python. These are the integer, float, and complex. Now, complex is used mostly for mathematical purposes. So variables of numeric types are created when you assign a value to them. Let's say, for example, if we place x equals 1, so this x here becomes an integer. Y equals 2.8, because of the fraction, then y becomes float. So z equals 1j, so because of this one, it becomes a complex data type. So to verify the type of any object, use the type function. So we have print type x, print type y, and print type z. So I did not place here the output, so let's try this. So if we try this, so we have x equals 1, y equals 2.8, z is equal to 1j. So if you print type x, so it says that it is an integer. Print type y, so that's float. Print type z, complex. So that's the output of this. Int. So int or integer is a whole number, positive or negative, without decimals or unlimited length. So we have x equals 1, y equals 3, 5, 6, no, I don't know, it's very long. So 3, 5, 6, 5, 6, 2, 2, 2, 2, 5, 5, 4, 8, 8, 7, 7, 1, 1. Or z equals negative 3, 2, 5, 5, 5, 2, 2. So if print the type of this will all display integer. So I will not be doing that anymore. Float or floating point number is a number positive or negative containing one or more decimals. So we have x 1.10, y equals 1.0 or 1.10, z is equal to negative 3, 5.59. So again, if we print, the output will be, it's a float. So float can also be in scientific numbers. So e here indicate that it is raised to 10 raised to 3. So that's multiplied by 10 raised to 3. So 35, E3 is 35 times 10 raised to 3. So that's times 1000. Okay, so 35 times 1, so that's 35,000. So we have 12E4. Again, that's equivalent to 12 times 10 raised to E4. So we have again negative 87.7 E100. So if we print this, it will all indicate that this is a float data type. Complex numbers. So complex numbers are written with a j as the imaginary part. So complex, so we have x equals 3 plus 5j, y equals 5j, z equals negative 5j. So these are all complex numbers. Type conversion. So you can convert from one type to another with the int, float, and complex method. So convert from one type to another. So a here is not yet declared, so float x, so that means a becomes a float number with a value 1. So x is an integer, but a is a float because we have converted that into a float. So b is equal to integer y. So if we do this, later on I'll be doing that. Okay, so print, so y here, although it's a float number, will be converted to integer. Complex x. So c equals complex x. So x is an integer, it becomes a complex value. So print a, print b, print c. So we'll have the values. Then we can also display the type. So let's try to do this. So let's do that here. So x equals 1, y equals 2.8, z is equal to 1j. So a is equal to float x, b is equal to integer y, c is equal to complex x. Print a. So you notice a is 1 or x is 1. When we converted x, integer 1 into a float, so it prints here 1.0. Print b. So that's 2.8, but it will truncate the decimal part because it is converted into an integer. So it will just print b, 2 rather. Then we have print c. So we have 1 plus 0j. So it was converted into complex. So needless to say, if we print type A, print type B, print type C, so we have these values. Random numbers. Python does not have a random function to make a random number, but Python has a built-in module called random, so that can be used to make random numbers. So how do we do this? We import the module and then we have random.run range. So this will this will print random numbers. So since I don't have the output here, let's try again. So we import random, then we can now print random.run range. So let's say from 1 to 10. So it will just print any number. So if you do it again, you notice it prints 6, print 7. So it just prints random numbers. We can actually change this one. Let's say up to 100. So you can now display any value from 1 to 100. So it will display or generate random numbers. Casting. Specify a variable type. So there may be times when you want to specify a type on to a variable. This can be done with casting. Python is an object-oriented language, and as such, it uses classes to define data types, including its primitive types. So casting in Python is therefore done using constructor functions. So we have the int, float, and str are examples. So int constructs an integer number from an integer literal, a float literal by removing all decimals, or a string literal by providing the string represents a whole number. So float, so again, if you provide string, it represents a whole number. Constructs a float number from an integer literal, a float literal, and a string literal, providing the string represents a float or an integer. str constructs a string from a wide variety of data types, including strings, integer literals, and float literals. So here are examples. Integer, we have integer 1, integer 2.8, this y will become 2. Integer 3, so it's a string, it will become an integer 3. If you use float 1, that will be converted to 1.0. 2.8, the same 2.8. Float 3, that will become 3.0. Float 4.2, which is a string, becomes 4.2. So we have strs1, it is already a string, so the same 2 will be converted into a string. 3.0 will be converted to 3.0, but in the form of a string. So that's how we cast. Okay, so that ends this chapter. Thank you very much for viewing this video.